Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm your host, Kelly Bass, and I really appreciate Benny Keith Foods giving me the chance to visit with many of the top chefs and restaurateurs from across the Mid-South on these podcasts. I have been a foodie for pretty much ever, and certainly before that term was even invented. And for the better part of 30 years, I had a great privilege of writing dining reviews and features for a couple of Little Rock, Arkansas-based newspaper, and then later for some magazines here in the capital city, long before the internet gave everyone a chance to be a food critic. But I will say I have loved talking about food a lot more than writing about it. Today, our guest is Payne Harding, executive chef and owner at Cash, one of the shining stars on Little Rock's dining scene. So welcome, Payne.
Hey, great to be here.
Glad you are. You know, from the day that you guys opened Cash about 10 years ago, you and your restaurant have been, and I have this in quotes, high profile, to say the least. First off, your restaurant is absolutely beautiful inside and outside, and it sits at the corner of President Clinton and River Market Avenues, which is one of the most visible and well-trafficked intersections in the city. So did that high profile and visibility create any kind of pressure from the get-go?
Yeah, like you said, anytime you open up a restaurant as high profile as Cash, of that caliber, there's going to come some pressure, to put out a good product. You want to put out something exceptional.
Right.
There is added pressure from the food critics, the public awaiting your opening. There's a lot of anticipation building up to that point. There's media releases. They're trying to do menu glips, and so it can be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I can see that. And then on a personal level, and those who are listening right around Little Rock, Arkansas, are likely to know your parents, Rush and Linda, because they're one of the most well-known couples in the city, and if not the state. So everyone knew who you were by affiliation, even if they didn't know you personally. And so I'm sure you've also been aware of the fact that you're from a high-profile family that's now running a high-profile restaurant. So I'm sure that's something you just kind of grew up with, right?
Yeah, it's something you get used to. Growing up, I had this idea, this feeling that I kind of knew, like, everyone knows my dad. Everywhere I go, people say hello to him, and I think that's fine. That's a good thing. I learned a lot from him. He taught me a lot growing up, how to act right, really. I knew right from wrong at a very early age, and he put a lot of emphasis on being humble and growing up and how we were raised.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'll tell you from personal experiences, not only do a lot of people say hello to your father, but he says hello back. And, he's always been very kind to me personally and then professionally, and my day job's at the Museum of Discovery, and one time he said, "Hey, you ought to bring some folks over and check out Cash, and we'll put up some apps and some wine and stuff." And so you want to make some people at the Museum of Discovery happy. Just tell them there's free food and drinks at a cool place like Cash in their future, and they're going to be super excited. So, and again, I'm sure many people would have predicted, or if not predicted, at least understood, if you had prepared from early on to become an investment banker like your dad. But I've read that you've known since you were a teenager, or maybe even a preteen, that you wanted to be a chef. So tell our listeners about when, how, and kind of why you came to that conclusion.
So right around about the 9th grade, you start thinking, what am I going to do for a career? Like, what could I be successful at? And I knew investment banking was one option. And, I kind of seen the horror stories my dad went through and some of the headaches he got. I just didn't know if that was for me.
Right.
I wasn't a great student, and I didn't take life too seriously. And as I seen, he did. So basketball coach was one option, and I kind of gotten burned a few times in the sport that kind of pushes you away a little bit. So, and I was thinking, what else could I do? And right around 2000, 2001, I think the Food Network was kind of taking off.
Right.
I'm the type of person, I'm watching a lot of Food Network, and I think M. Rule was really big back then. And I thought, he is so cool. I think, cooking is something that I could maybe get into. And at the same time, my parents ate out a lot.
Right.
Like they eat at a lot of restaurants. I think Lee Richardson was the chef at the Capitol Hotel at the time.
Right.
I think I ate at the Capitol Hotel once a week. And a lot of times it was in the wine cellar, getting the fancy stuff.
Right.
I ate at 1620 probably once a week with my parents, getting filet mignon and lobster, crab claws, escargot, things that, ninth graders, eighth graders, they don't usually eat.
Right.
I think they gave me a sip of wine one time and I was like, but you get to those experiences at that age and you kind of start thinking, I enjoy eating that food. Maybe I can enjoy being in the restaurant business.
Wow, and it really has worked out. That was a lot of years ago. So, like everybody probably that starts in the restaurant business, you started from the bottom, which I guess maybe busboy and then a dishwasher. Were those kind of your first gigs in the restaurant world?
So I mentioned 1620, and we lived right around the corner from that restaurant. Good friends with the owners, Tim and Yvette Brady. So they offered to let me work as a busboy. 15 years old. You're in that atmosphere. It can be kind of seducing. You're working with 23, 25-year-old people. They're kind of cool. You see them drinking after work, and they're doing crazy stuff, and it's wild. And
right.
And you're just some kid, and you're like, I love this. I'm getting paid to have fun. These guys are messing around in the back. It's just, it was a good time. So I bought in quickly.
Yeah, it really, kitchens can be exciting places. They kind of remind me of sports in a way, in that, you gear up for the game that night and you work together as a team. And we'll talk more about your team at Cash in a few minutes. And then when things go well, you celebrate as a team and, look back, what could we have done better? It's just really, there's a lot of just energy that goes there. But again, and you were working. It wasn't like you were working at a just a fast food place or something. You were working at 1620, and you were surrounded by people. I mean, particularly Tim and Yvette and the folks who are still considered, when you look back at the Little Rock restaurant scene, were superstars. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that was cool just to be around there. And so, but there you are working in high school at 1620, and it reinforced your thought that you could do this for a living. But there was a little thing called college that you wanted to complete. And tell us about your college experience and your family's connection to your alma mater.
Right. So coming out of high school, I was an all-city and all-region selection in basketball.
Right.
So, I probably could have made all-state, but I didn't. I had a really good team. I think my sophomore year was my brother's senior year. We lost one game that year. I think we were ranked like 15th in the country.
Yeah.
So we took it real serious. And I had about 5 schools in the state that I could have chose from to play for. And, my dad would take me to UCA football games growing up, every season. I'd go to 2 or 3 home football games, definitely the homecoming game. Same with the basketball season. And they would let me in the locker room. I get to meet the players. The coaches would be messing with me. The president of the school at the time would text me. He was, come eat lunch with me, things.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'd get to sit in the president's office and eat lunch. So it just had a big influence on it kind of was like, this is where you're supposed to go to school. And I understood that. And I knew it was important to my dad. And, that's where my mom went. That's where they met. My dad's parents went to school there.
Can't get much more legacy than
my
that.
sister went to school there.
Yeah.
My dad is a huge philanthropist. He donated money. They built a fountain in his name.
Right.
I was going to get my name etched in stone if I graduated. I didn't want to skip out on that for them.
Yeah, and UCA is a good school, and it's also got great sports programs. In a former life, I was a sports writer, and back in about 1990, they won the national championship in football, and I got to cover that game. So, and it's about 30 minutes up the road from Little Rock, so you're away from home, but you're not so far you can't come running back if you want to come do something fun with your friends or hang out with your family. So UCA made perfect sense. So did you keep working in restaurants during college, or did you take a break? Anything kind of between 1620 and when you graduated college? Or?
So after 1620, I started working at Vermilion Water Grill.
Oh, yeah,
and I got in good with Mike Seelig.
Yeah.
And that was really my first cook job. I did some cooking at 1620, but Mike really let me have my own station. That was lunch and dinner service. And he taught me, he taught me a lot. He was more about managing. This is how you manage a kitchen.
Right.
He didn't do a ton of cooking.
Right.
He had that force in the kitchen when he walked around. He had everyone's attention, and he was that figure in the restaurant that kind of led the group. Everyone looked up to him, and he had this energy about him that was so positive. He was such a positive mentor, and he was the one that really encouraged me to go to culinary school.
Yeah, and that's great. And so again, all of a sudden, you've now worked for 2 or 3 of the kind of legends of the Little Rock restaurant scene, which there's no better place. So, did you move forward? Did you move forward with your culinary career right after college? Did you go straight from college to the Culinary Institute of America, or did you have...
Right, so 2009, I graduated from UCA, and I got that done in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Just summer school after summer school. Every summer, I was just like, I'm taking summer school. This is what I'm doing. And, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the studying and the test taking. It was a rewarding experience, the college days. So I got that done in 3 years, and then I went straight to Hyde Park at the CIA.
Yeah. Is that where you knew you wanted to go? I mean, I'm sure you looked around at, so there's lots of options.
Mike Seelig wanted me to go to Johnson & Wells.
Yeah.
And I heard that was more of like a management type of chef school. I wanted to learn how to cook. And they would tell me, the CIA is a chef school. It's a cook's school. They want you to learn how to cook.
Right.
And I just heard that they had the best curriculum for learning how to cook. And that's what I ultimately I wanted to know how to be a chef. And I did a lot of research, and I saw that famous chefs were getting their degree from the CIA. Right. A lot of the big name chefs you see out there has CIA degrees.
So looking back on that experience, and after spending 10 years running the kitchen at Cash, was it very relevant experience? I mean, did you learn a lot there that has played out to be very valuable in your work at Cash?
So at the CIA, there's a lot of deadlines. Teaching you to be punctual was the first thing that I learned. I can be on time, perfectly every day. Anything I need on the schedule, I can organize it really well. They were big on appearance. Shaving. You had to be clean shaven every day. And even one class, for some reason, this story sticks out with me. It was like a 9 a.m. class. It ran until about 1:30 or something. But we had a lunch break. And the chef, it was like the second cooking class. It was called fish class, fish fabrication. And the chef was a hard ass. And, I had to be clean shaven before class. But then at lunch, he would pull me aside and say, you need to go shave. So I had to shave twice. And I was the only kid in class who was making me do that. And I could tell he was kind of discouraging me. He did not want me to succeed. He kind of wanted me to quit, and I could see that. And it almost makes that fire burn a little bit more when you get that type of adversity from a chef like that. Yeah,
but again, you learned your lessons, and here you are. So, as I freely admit, that the internet is a podcaster interviewer's best friend, and there have been a lot of features on you and your restaurant that I've read. And one of your quotes really stuck with me. And in one of those interviews, you described yourself as a grinder. And when I hear about grinders, I think about that from a sports perspective. And it's usually someone whose positive results and positive achievements, they owe more to their effort and their persistence than just to being purely talented. So again, you were a college basketball player. You were a star in high school. You're now a chef and restaurant owner and have been for a decade. Do you think that self-described grinder label still applies? And if so, why?
So that was a question I was asked in a previous interview. And it was really just kind of, she asked me if this business came easy to me, or if there may have been some struggles along the way. And really my answer was just the path that I took. It wasn't all easy all the time.
Right.
And I think that's normal. It's never just going to be, extremely just, this is so easy for me. But I do relate that to my sports days. But generally, it's just how I approach life now. And but I was just going to mention, I have a condition in my feet called plantar fasciitis in both feet. It's terrible condition. So just getting around for long hours in a day can just be a kind of a grinding situation in general.
Yeah, because being a chef, you're on your feet.
Yeah, so that can be tough. Other things that come to mind, I just completed my CEC cooking certification through the American Culinary Federation.
Okay.
So it's called Certified Executive Chef. You have to pass a grueling cooking finale in front of like 6 or 7 judges. I failed the first attempt, but I had to persevere, and I had to take it again, that second attempt, so I could have easily just quit after that first one, but I wanted it so bad. You keep going, you got to keep pushing through. And that's one thing that my dad did teach me at a young age. He would tell me, fight through adversity all the time. And it was just hammered through in my mind. So,
Yeah.
that's where that grinder label comes from.
Well, it makes sense too. And again, in sports, you can sometimes be surrounded by guys and go like, wow, you have no trouble making all this work. I have to work hard to make it happen. But the results are the results. A basket.
I specifically remember do one story at the CIA, and I'm not ashamed of this, but I think there was like 8 weeks left in the semester. I had completed all the classes, and I was about to start what they called restaurant row. So you had to do front and the back house in 2 restaurants on campus. And I remember I got an email from the dean of students. I'm sitting there like, why does the dean want to see me? So I go to the office, and the dean pulls me in, and he says, it takes a 2.0 GPA to graduate from this university. And I'm like, okay, here we go. He was like, you have a 2.01 GPA. And he was like, are you going to make it these next 8 weeks? And I'm sitting there thinking like, dang, and I'm telling him like, yes, I'll be fine. He's like offering me all this help. And of course I'm like, no, I'll be fine. So I walked out thinking I'm going to fail out of culinary school. This is going to be the worst thing for my career. But that I pushed through though,
Right.
That's kind of like another kind of grinded out style of just who I am. It's like, I wasn't the best student, but I grinded through it,
Well, you knew what was on the line, and you seized the opportunity and made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And now here again, like you said, your first attempt at CEC didn't make it, so you did it again and you got it. Oh, I can't tell you. You look around and ask how many CPAs passed all parts of the CPA on their first attempt, and it's not many. But you know what? They got it done. So another thing that I've heard you say multiple times, and it's really something, there's certain themes that I've heard from many, if not most, of my Heaping Spoonful guests, and that's the criticality of surrounding yourself with a great team. And at Cash, you have not only worked with great people in all the primary roles, but a lot of them have been there a long time. So tell us a little bit about who some of those people are, because, again, you're well aware you can't do it by yourself.
So when we first opened a restaurant, we hired a chef by the name of Matt Cooper.
I know him.
He was kind of supposed to, again, like mentor me through the opening of the restaurant. He wrote the menus and he was supposed to hit the ground running with the restaurant. He brought along a chef by the name of Mario Flores. But Chef Cooper ended up leaving after that first year. But Mario stuck with me since day one. So me and him have forged a nice working relationship together. So he's my sous chef since day one.
Wow.
And that's great because we can, we text, we talk, and we have that same style of cooking now that he understands what I like, and he almost kind of cooks like me in a sense. And I don't really have to worry too much about his production because I know what I expect, and he knows what I expect of him. So that's, for starters, that's an awesome thing to have in a restaurant, is someone you can lean on, especially an executive sous chef like that. And he has a great work ethic. I mean, he's an amazing chef. He has really great technique. The general manager, Courtney Wellborn, she started working as a waitress at 1620 and just kind of worked her way up. And now she's the general manager of the restaurant.
Yeah, cool.
So she's been there since day one. Her and my dad get along real well. She's kind of like the communicator of the restaurant to him.
Right. Yeah.
JoJo has been there since day one.
As famous a waiter as there is in this city.
She recently had a setback, a physical implement, motorcycle fell on her leg, something like that. She's been out for a while. But it's been great, to have 3 or 4 founders of the restaurant. We're still working there. The line cooks that work with me now have been with me for like 3 or 4 years. And I think that speaks volumes to my type of management style. Usually you have them leaving and going, and it's a cycle of never-ending cooks entering and leaving your restaurant. But mine have been here for a long time. And I think that's a testament to my food. If you ask people in the city, I think our food is really consistent at a high quality, and I'm not doing much of the cooking.
Right. Well, it's your vision and your direction, and you got, as you said, your executive sous chef. You don't have to worry because he knows exactly how you want it done. He does it the same way, and again, that speaks volumes about the restaurant and how you treat your people, because people have choices these days, and it's even more so since COVID, for sure. So we're going to a little bit later in the interview, we're going to talk a little bit more about the menu, but before we get there, I'm going to ask you to take more of a 40,000-foot view of your restaurant. So when you think back to 10 years ago, and we're recording this, we hope people are listening for years to come, but we're recording this in mid-July of 2023, so it's been about 10 years. In what ways has it changed? How is it better now than when you opened?
So when we first opened, the cuisine just was not on point. I don't think we had a central focus of the cuisine. It was kind of this and that, high-end ingredients kind of thrown together. But in the middle of this whole 10-year span, I consulted with Lee Richardson at the Capitol Hotel. I mentioned him before.
Right.
And we got real close. He was kind of like, we worked together for about 15 months, and he taught me basically the things that he served at Ashley's Hotel. The Capitol Hotel. Right. He taught me the kind of the Cajun Creole type of cuisine. A lot of his recipes, jambalaya, etouffee, the gumbo, barbecue shrimp and grits, crab cakes, beef Wellington. A lot of these just classic dishes that he showed me, and he kind of just taught me a type of cuisine that I could kind of put on my shoulder and kind of run with at the restaurant. So I think the food has become more focused. I think the menu has become more of a Southern French, Cajun type of menu. I think the front of the house has gotten a good hold on a nice night of service. I don't think there's many hiccups, as opposed to in the beginning, your wait staff may not have much confidence in what they're doing. But like you said earlier, we have a lot of people that have been there for many years, and I think we're offering a nice evening at Cash Restaurant.
We all do, and I also have seen quotes from you about the whole experience. And again, it's beautiful. The fixtures, the open kitchen, the bar area, the bar itself, just the plates. The glasses. It's just it all adds up together too. So listen, you're doing a great job. Okay, everybody, we're going to take a short break here on Heaping Spoonful. We'll be back in just a moment with Payne Harding of Cash Restaurant in the River Market District of downtown Little Rock.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
All right, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful as we continue our conversation with Payne Harding. Like everyone in the restaurant business, and any business, or just life, you had to deal with the disruptions, the uncertainty, and the inevitable, great word, pivots of the COVID-19 pandemic. But then you also had to deal with what I would think would be safe to call disaster that was unique to you and your restaurant, which was an extended closure because of what I'll loosely call plumbing issues. So tell our listeners about that. What happened, how you dealt with it, how long you were closed.
Interesting situation, that one. So one day, I'm walking around the restaurant and I noticed there's a huge inverted wood piece on our floor. The wood had kind of buckled rather, and
right.
I'm like, well, I think they put like a rug over it or a carpet over it for a day or two. And I was like, we got to get this fixed. Someone's going to trip over this. We're getting in trouble. So we ended up calling a contractor out, ripping up we're just going to replace that little piece of wood. And then we noticed that there was just black oil underneath. So we have a subflooring. You have a concrete floor and about 6 inches of space, and then the wood flooring begins. So in that huge gap, we noticed that there was tons of tar. We're like, what the heck? So we kept ripping up the wood, and there was just covered in tar and oil. And the whole first floor of the restaurant was ruined. And we're talking like marble fixtures have been compromised. The wooden bar, everything was just ruined, had to get replaced. And what the cause was is we hired a design firm out of Atlanta to design the restaurant. So the blueprints, everything, they designed it. Then we took those designs to a local contracting firm here in Little Rock, and they built the physical restaurant, Clark Contractors. Yep. And the person building the restaurant didn't read those designs correctly. So the grease trap had like a 90-degree angle exiting to the streets, to get rid of the grease, what have you. And they built these things called flow-outs in the design, and they're supposed to be with a power washer, huge, pressure. You power wash these things out called flow-outs. It's supposed to help the grease exit out. But the contractor didn't really see that. So he was supposed to build like a trap door in certain spots of the restaurant. And he just built a wood floor directly over all these flow outs. And it was just a lack of communication when the restaurant got built,
Right.
I think it's somewhat common. I've heard of other people saying I've heard of this before happening. We had the restaurant insured, full insurance, which is, a good thing, obviously. Yeah. So the grease just kept flowing out of these flow outs. It never got cleaned properly. That 90-degree angle probably was a flawed design.
Right. It wasn't making the turn.
Yeah. So the heat and just the residuals from these oils making the wood buckle. So they had to scrape and clean and cure and cement the floors and new marble, new everything, new glass work. It was a big deal. The insurance company, it took like a long time to cough it up.
Oh yeah,
that was a stressful situation, but it's worked itself out. I think it gave us a break. We lost some business during that time. I think we lost a lot of clientele to other restaurants, just kind of forgetting about us almost.
How long were you closed?
6-7 months.
7 months.
That was when I was able to step away and do the CEC. I had to take like 5 college classes online. I had to do like an essay.
Was this in what year was this? 21 or 22?
2022.
22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right when COVID. Yeah. Right after COVID, actually.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So again, it gave you time to go and do professional development.
Right.
Did you make any other changes, or did you open back up exactly like you were before?
We opened right back up. No changes. Just not as busy. It took us a while to get it back.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about your overall philosophy. Well, we already have. You've talked about kind of your philosophy of your menu. So now let's kind of look at it starting with lunch a little bit. We're not going to get down the gory details, but when I look at your menu, which I've done just recently before we did this podcast, but I've looked at it in your restaurant. I mean, I call it both elegant and approachable. I mean, you've got some things that are like blackened tuna wontons, which is at the top of your menu, a featured item. You have a blackened salmon entree, which I think those both qualify as elegant, but I'm going to editorialize. You don't just have a cheeseburger, you have a damn good cheeseburger. You have tacos, you have a club sandwich, you got pizzas, all certainly approachable. So I'm obviously the goal was to give people kind of what level of cuisine at lunch they were looking for.
Those tuna nachos have really done well. So that was a dish I created.
It's a good grated tuna.
It is fresh tuna from Hawaii. We get it delivered like twice a week. And it is black. We get a hot pan, and it's dredged really in a toasted sesame seed and this Japanese spice mixture. And it's just seared real quickly. You get that nice crust, and we slice it rare. And it goes on the crispy wontons with the sriracha mayo and the hoisin and the fresh guacamole we make. It's a delicious little bite.
Yeah, but I mean, again, then if you decide you want to they're all, a club sandwich is a club sandwich, except yours is good.
Well, so I write the menus for the lunch team, but the one thing I've learned in the restaurant business is if you're not delegating eventually, if you're not eventually moving towards delegation, you're just going to work yourself, too much. So I have a lunch chef trained, and he takes great pride in his specials. I think he does the fried catfish and the fried chicken. And again, the sous chef is Tim Morton's brother. So that's
cool.
So he's bringing some of that 1620 flair to the lunch menu.
Yeah, and Tim Morton was the chef at 1620, where Payne got his career started. Yeah, well, I've been in on both Thursdays and Fridays for. I think if you work your way across a lot of good downtown restaurants, you can kind of have fried chicken about every day, and my stomach shows that I do it more often than I should. But I know those are popular, and
our fried chicken is so good.
It is so good,
and it's not just dredging and frying. We fry it at a lower temperature. And most people fry 350. We fry at 325 for about 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and it just allows the chicken to be so moist and succulent on the inside, crispy on the outside. We do a nice marinade on the chicken for about another 25 minutes or so before we fry. And it is just, I think we have the best fried chicken in town.
I can't argue with you on
Gus's fried chicken is too spicy for me.
It is super spicy. You gotta want that, and sometimes people don't. But I agree. And sometimes when I'm at your restaurant and I'm seeing the fried chicken coming across the floor to other tables, I'm kind of wishing that I had broken down and gotten it. And sometimes I do. So now let's head to your dinner menu. And I'm telling you, I could make multiple meals just off the appetizer menu. You've got a dozen at the current menu. You have a dozen I would call classics. And I'm just going to, I don't expect you to talk about all of them. I'm just going to let our listeners know what they can get strictly from the cash appetizer menu. Shrimp cocktail, those tuna wontons we've been talking about, a meat and cheese border charcuterie trays, crab claws, fried calamari, candied bacon. Oh, I've had that. Smoked pork belly, crab cakes. They're the best I've had at Little Rock, are your crab cakes. Shrimp and grits. You talked about learning that from Lee Richardson. Bruschetta, escargot, and beef carpaccio. I mean, wow. A dozen wows, actually.
Yeah, so when I eat out, I really enjoy appetizers. That's the first thing I look at. And I think that kind of makes the dinner fun. I think the guest wants to see an array of appetizers. Just, they're so hungry when they get there. And I like feeding groups. So we get a lot of groups at Cash. So I like to do large plates, almost like canapes or tapas, rather.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So
shareables,
And I like to serve what I like to eat, and I just want, you go to a lot of restaurants and you'll say, that looks good, bad, that looks good, no, that doesn't look, but I want all bangers I want everything good.
Yeah. There's not a loser among that group. And
right.
I mean, I just starting with a shrimp cocktail because I know how you do that too. Really good shrimp, chilled, perfect sauce. I mean, it's just.
I don't think where can you get a better shrimp cocktail than Cash Restaurant?
I agree 100%.
Our shrimp cocktail is, it's perfect. We do it in a cocktail glass. We crush our own ice. Our horseradish cocktail sauce it complements the shrimp perfect with Old Bay. It's delicious.
No, it is. And now, again, with the entrees, the hits just keep coming and the variety. But again, classics all. So we have scallops, fried chicken breast. We've talked about the way you guys fry chicken. A seared duck breast. This is Arkansas. Your restaurant is named Cache because of the Cache River, which is in the Delta area from where your father came from. And it's duck hunting world out there. The blackened salmon, again, back to what we found on the lunch menu. Shrimp scampi, paella, which I adore, and you don't find in many restaurants in Little Rock. You got a filet, you got to have a steak. You got a filet, you got a New York strip, a butcher's steak, you got lamb chops, you got pork chops, honey soy beef tips, and then you got a lot of choices on how you dress up the steaks with sauces and additions. Clearly, like you say, you want to look at a menu where you want everything. There's no losers in the bunch. And I'm guessing that was your same strategy that you used with the appetizers and also with the main courses.
Yes, of course. And you mentioned our crab cakes, and I love our crab cakes. And I don't eat crab cakes anywhere but in my restaurant. And mostly crab cakes are deep fried.
Yeah.
And tons of oil. There's lots of breading to get that crispiness exterior. But we just load ours down with crab, a little bit of panko. And we sear them on the plancha, and we finish them in the salamander, the broiler.
Right.
And they're not deep fried, and they're just so succulent with crab meat.
Oh, I know. And once you've had a true lump crab cake, anything else. And when just to be honest with you, when I see a restaurant that has 2 crab cakes for $14, I'm like, there ain't a lot of crab in this.
Oh, get that? Yeah. I hate the price on it, but
it's because it's lump crab.
Sometimes my sous chef that I mentioned, he'll get the crab meat in, and it'll be fin meat or like back fin, or it'll be lump, and I'll be like, did the good stuff not come in? He'd be like, oh, the good stuff didn't come in today, but we buy jumbo lump, like grade A, the best you can buy in pasteurized crab meat.
Yeah, that's why it's so good.
But again, we were talking about the entrees. Yes, I mean, I really shaped it after a steakhouse. I wanted a few different cuts of beef. We had the beef tenderloin. We had the strip steak. We have the butcher steak, as you mentioned, and that's really a cheaper option. It's they call it the butcher steak because you don't see that cut being offered a lot in grocery stores or butcher shops. I mean, you almost have to kind of know your way around, like what you want to ask for. Like, let me get the cheaper cut. It tastes very. It almost has a bloody taste to it, kind of an irony more feel.
I'll have to try that.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I would say the theme of classic continues with your desserts. You have the creme brulee, a bread pudding, chocolate cake, cheesecake, and a skillet cookie. I know they're all made in-house. Tell us a little bit about those, and don't forget to tell me about that skillet cookie.
So the skillet cookie, they were asking for some new desserts, and they're like, we want some new desserts. I couldn't really think of too much. I'm not a pastry chef, and we do quick pickups at the restaurant. That's what I like about my kitchen. Everything we do is very quick. And the skillet cookie, you grab the dough out of the fridge that we do make from scratch, and we have lots of logs of dough ready, and we just throw it in a hot skillet, throw it in the oven, let it bake. We serve it like halfway baked, like 3/4, and then just top it with some Kilwin's ice cream. We do use Kilwin's right next door. It's right there. So.
Oh, man, that's good ice cream. Again, working downtown for 10-plus years now, I've had to fight my Kilwin's habit because it's easy to wander over there in the afternoon.
That bread pudding is an original recipe from, actually, that was Matt Cooper's from day one. We left that. The paella was his recipe, too. So there's a couple of things that we've left from him. The cheesecake is awesome. It's so good.
Everybody wants creme brulee.
And the creme brulee, so that was a big deal at this restaurant I worked at in Manhattan, Le Cirque. So they love their creme brulee there. And that's where I kind of first tasted the best creme brulee of my life was there. And I think we replicated pretty good at our restaurant. I mean,
yeah, that's
very good.
And besides your lunch and dinner menu, which we've talked about, there's other options. So you have 3-course menu options, and they're the classic, the premier, and the elite. Tell our listeners about those and kind of how they differ. And is that just for the people who say, like, hey, look, I just want to, because when you travel, you see that option. And, in Paris, you're going to see it everywhere you go on a chalkboard. But is that something you just decided, hey, I want to just group these things together and give people a little bit of choice?
So one thing over the years that we've developed at the restaurant is our catering. And that pertains to our catering business. Upstairs, large groups, 30 plus people, 25 people, we say, hey, what tier do you want to order from? I think the first tier may be some pork chops and salmon. The next tier will be some better cuts of meat, some fillets, or Dover sole. And then the third tier is like, they get lots of stuff, like a lot of different options.
Yeah, I think there's lobster on.
So we do a lot of wedding receptions or rehearsal dinners, things like that. That's where they'll order off that menu for large groups. So
just so you can be prepared for it. Mm-hmm. And then you also do a chef's tasting menu, which you can do with wine or without wine pairings. Is that just, again, a chance for your kitchen to have fun doing different stuff?
So that is a nicer type of dining. It's a tasting format. The smaller portions, something that you're going to see in a fancier type of restaurant in a bigger city. You sit down and you have they call it a degustation menu. It's what the chef wants to give you, and a tasting. So it's about 6 or 7 courses, and wine pairing's optional. And no one cooks for the guests but me when we get the tastings.
And I've done that, and I sat at felt like a special table that was, I think there were 8 of us, that was right off the kitchen, and it was a super cool experience.
So no one helps me in that. I mean, the sous chef, he'll help me a little bit, but like I'm mainly orchestrating the entire night with that. So it can be special. Yeah, it's special. Well,
and then everybody knows they're getting it from the executive chef. And then, again, and I haven't experienced this, and I just read briefly about it, you have like a little offshoot that I would call a speakeasy. So describe that experience, kind of how it happens, what it is, and when that happened and how you conceptualized it.
So when the restaurant was first built, that was a retail. It was called the Freckled Frog.
Oh, I remember the Freckled Frog.
And they sell local T-shirts and local made jewelry, and it was a nice little retail spot. And they leased that space from my dad.
Right.
So we own that square footage. And when COVID hit, they said, "We're out. We don't want to do business here." So they left, and it was an open space. And we generated some ideas. I think we were going to make it like a kitchen supply store was the first idea. Then we said no, and then we got some. Gary Mertens was a designer on that space.
He's a local legend.
So, my dad, he wanted somewhere to watch the Razorback games. He put like 100-inch screen TV in there. Things are ridiculous. A few more TVs. He loves fun music. He put a DJ booth on the ceiling, basically with a ladder. We have a little in-house DJ. There's actually a dining room in the back for 10. So that speakeasy sits about 15 or 20 or so with a full bar, 4 or 5 tables of 4 seats. And then if you go farther back, there's actually a dining room of 10.
Does it have a name, or is it just
we call it the Bayou.
The Bayou, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, it fits right in with Cass.
So there's memberships available for that. We have quite a few members, so it's a good thing. I do some chef's tastings back there. There's some wine tastings in the back. There's a private bathroom, which is nice for the guests.
Nice. Yeah,
it's a fun space.
Well, I told you before we started recording, this is our 90th episode of Heaping Spoonful, and every time I come out with ideas about things I want to do, the good news for me is I live and work very close to your restaurant, so I'm thinking about all the cool stuff I want to come do there. So that's great. So before we close, let's talk a little bit about your wine and cocktail menu. Is that something that you have someone who is, because I have partaken of some really nice wines at Cash, and I know you have a really cool specialty cocktail menu, and that's an obvious compliment to the menu you've got. So that's been a focus from the get-go for you guys?
Yes. So our general manager designs the cocktail menu, but we also have a bartender that's quite accomplished in that field, and she helps. And they design the menu together, and I like to taste what they make, and I'll approve of what this is good. That's I'll tell them what I think.
Right.
Am I an expert on cocktails? I'm not. I'm not even big on alcohol that much, so I don't drink a ton. But yes, our cocktail menu is awesome. Yeah, I like to think that we put an emphasis on local ingredients or seasonal ingredients, right. And I think they do a good job with that.
Well, your wines are good too, and they're reasonably priced. It's gotten to the point where it's hard to go somewhere and get a glass of wine for less than $16 or something. But you got some nice, really approachable $10 wines and nice bottles that are reasonably priced. And then you got some pricier things for people who want to display.
Oh yeah, we got some fun bottles. I love French wines. The classic regions in France.
Yeah, Burgundies and Bordeaux's. Yeah. So anyway, well, it's you got a great thing going on. Congratulations on 10 years. Looking forward to the next 10. So thank you a lot, Payne, for being my guest today on Heaping Spoonful. Continued good luck with Cash and the Bayou. And thanks to all of you all for listening today. We post new episodes on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So keep an eye and an ear out for those, and go back and check out some of the ones you might have missed. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.